This final chapter of virtual tips and tricks for the Sporty's E6B flight computers was added when a new feature was introduced, known as the required rate of climb. This feature is critical for the instrument pilot for determining minimum rate of climb performance to comply with instrument departure procedures for avoiding obstacles. The required rate of climb is based on the design criteria outlined in an FAA publication known as TERPS, or TERPS. This standard for terminal instrument procedures represents the criteria used for the development of most instrument flight procedures in the USA. Before we examine this function on the E6B, let's take a close look at the purpose of this feature. When a published instrument departure is first designed, it is based upon standard criteria of an initial climb of 200 feet per nautical mile after crossing the departure end of the runway at a height of at least 35 feet. You should notice that the published initial required rate of climb is 200 feet per nautical mile, not 200 feet per minute, as you would see on your vertical speed indicator. Since a VSI is the only instrument we can use to determine our rate of climb, one would think that the published rate of climb would also be in feet per minute. That would not be a correct assumption, and we will show you why. Initially, all departures are designed to provide clearance based upon a 40:1 ratio, which is equivalent to a 152 foot per nautical mile slope. Since the goal is to provide a climb gradient so that 48 feet per nautical mile of obstacle clearance is achieved, this works out to a climb gradient of 200 feet per nautical mile. In a perfect world, the 40:1 slope would work for every departure design. However, due to terrain and man-made obstacles, it is often necessary to increase the slope design in order to guarantee a safe, obstacle-free departure. In cases of mountainous terrain, broadcast towers, or even noise abatement requirements, the design of the departure may require a greater climb gradient, an increase in the standard takeoff minimums, a specific departure route, or a combination of these options. The design of a particular departure does not consider the performance of the aircraft. It only considers obstacle protection for all aircraft. Let's take a look at why the departure procedures call for a climb rate in terms of feet per nautical mile. Based upon ground speed, not indicated or calibrated airspeed, the procedure is telling us that we need to be at or above a certain minimum altitude over a specific distance, not over a period of time. The VSI shows our climb rate over time, not distance, so we need this feature to tell us what the rate of climb should be in feet per minute, so we can use our VSI to match the required rate of climb as stated in an instrument procedure in feet per nautical mile. The procedure for a particular departure calls for 440 feet per nautical mile. That would translate to a 7.2% climb slope. Two aircraft with different performance characteristics take off at the same time on parallel runways. Both airplanes climb out at the same vertical speed, but with different ground speeds. During climb-out, the first aircraft sustains a ground speed of 80 knots, and the second aircraft performs at twice that speed, at 160 knots. Both aircraft are flying the same departure. Okay, this would not necessarily occur in the real world, but bear with me in order to demonstrate why departure procedures are shown in feet per mile as opposed to feet per minute. To achieve this required rate of climb in feet per nautical mile at 80 knots ground speed, the first airplane's minimum rate of climb, as shown on the VSI, would be required to be 587 feet per minute. If the second airplane, with a takeoff ground speed of 160 knots, showed the same 587 feet per minute climb rate, it would come in contact with the obstacle that the procedure was designed to avoid. Instead, the second airplane would have needed a climb rate of at least 1,173 feet per minute in order to achieve the 440 feet per nautical mile requirement as stated in the departure procedure. The Sporty's E6B's new feature removes the complication of this very important requirement by requesting only your ground speed for climb-out and the departure feet per mile requirement. In return, the Sporty's E6B will tell you what your climb rate should be based upon your VSI, as well as the slope percentage. Let's try an example of the same criteria on the E6B. Using the cursors on the keypad, select Required Climb and press the Enter key. The first prompt is asking for the published minimum climb, as stated in the departure procedure. Enter 440 and press Enter. The next prompt is asking you what your climb-out ground speed will be. Enter 80 for 80 knots and press the Enter key. What you will see is exactly what you already learned from the example. At 80 knots ground speed for climb out, you will need to show at least 587 feet per minute climb rate on your VSI. Just to see if the previous example was correct, press the Enter key twice and enter 160 for the ground speed of your climb and press Enter. You should see that the minimum required rate of climb on your VSI should be double that at over 1,173 feet per minute.